أمضي على طريقه أصارع الأعداء.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mayor Weinstein. Welcome to the Never Again Live podcast. I'm going to ask everyone who's joining us, who's watching our show, if you could please share this with the various groups and pages that you're part of on social media. We'll reach a lot more people. We'll have a stronger effect. So please do that. Tonight, we're going to be talking, well, a lot of issues going on. I mean, there's rampant anti-Semitism all over the world, including here in Canada and locally in Toronto on a daily basis. Just the other day in Montreal, a kosher restaurant was firebombed. Can you believe it? Who did it? There's rallies and protests and Jews being assaulted in Montreal under the banner of Free Palestine. The BDS is vicious. They preach violence and they carry it out on the streets in Canada and the United States. Jewish businesses are targeted. Some government officials even recommended to Jews, maybe you should not wear your kippahs, or maybe you should not wear a Magen David. Maybe you shouldn't wear anything that identifies you as being Jewish, so you're not going to be attacked. There's a lot of fear in the community. And I want to tell everyone, don't be afraid. Stand up to this fear. Stand up to it. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about there are charities in Canada raising a lot of money for Gaza. I'm not saying that these charities are necessarily fronts for Hamas, but there's no accountability in Gaza. Gaza is controlled by Hamas. So where is the accountability? How do they afford to build tunnels to attack Israel with? How do they afford the weapons they use against Israel? Where's that money come from? We'll be talking about that tonight. We'll be talking about a lot more than just that as well. One thing that I want to speak about right now, every show we have, we talk about the Parsha a little bit as a lead into the show. And the Parsha, this Shabbat coming up, is Parshas Chukot. Now, what is the meaning of that word, Chukot? There are three categories of mitzvahs, commandments in the Torah. There are national mitzvot, commandments that we commemorate, holiday of Passover and other holidays, takes on a national meaning for our people. There are ethical laws. Don't steal, don't wrong your neighbor. People could grasp that. So national laws make sense to a lot of people. And ethical laws make sense to a lot of people. But the laws of chukim, a chuk, chukim is the plural of it, are laws that do not necessarily make sense. You do them because you're commanded to do them. And in essence, really, what the rabbis say, what the sages say, is that every single law in the Torah really is a chuk law, a commandment. You do it because God tells you to do it, not because it made sense, in that it's made ethical sense. Something which is ethical today in another society could be deemed not ethical, and something contrary to what the Torah says is ethical could be presented in glowing terms somewhere else. That for sure is the case in Gaza and in Lebanon and in Syria and et cetera, where the mantra is death to the Jews and destroy Israel. And Judaism doesn't teach anything like that at all. We're polar opposites. So I want to, and it's important that we discuss this Parsha briefly, because our people have to be united and have to know what is a Jewish concept, what a Jewish state is, what Israel means, what it's all about. So there's an interesting story in the Talmud about four sages that one was Rabbi Akiva, one was Elisha ben Avuya, another was Ben Azai, and another was Ben Zoma. And it says that they entered paradise. Now, that's a concept unto its own. And what it means is that they entered the highest realms of learning and understanding. And Rabbi Akiva warned them against embarking on such a journey, because they may not come out of this state the same way as they entered in. When did this occur? And that's very relevant also, because without context, it's all meaningless. It's completely meaningless. This story didn't occur 10 years ago, 40 years ago, 100 years ago. This occurred during the period of time of the Second Temple, when the Romans were butchering Jews, when the Romans were destroying the temple, when the meaning of life was, you're in dire straits. And what do you do in those situations? And how do you maintain even your dignity and your status as a Jew? So They entered the highest realms of learning, and it says that, let me just read it, that Ben Azai died, Ben Zoma lost his sanity, went completely nuts, mental, completely. Elisha ben Avuya, which he is referred to as Acher, lost his faith. And Rabbi Akiva survived, it says, as he entered into those realms of understanding, he left the same way. Everybody knows Rabbi Akiva was very involved in fighting against the Romans, extremely involved. He encouraged all his Talmidim, all his students, to join the Bar Kokhba revolt against the Romans. There's a lot that could be said about Rabbi Akiva. And he was also tortured in the worst way possible by the Romans on his death. They combed his flesh over flames. It was just gruesome what they did to our sages and to our people back then. So everything is in context. Now, how did Elisha ben Avuye lose his faith? And that's the essence of the Parsha Hukim. That's it, commandments. So there is a commandment. This is what he saw. He observed something. He observed a boy climbing up a tree, and he saw a nest of eggs. He shooed the mother bird away, which is what it says in the Torah to do when you're going to get the eggs. And he got the eggs, and a branch broke, and the kid fell off the tree, and he died. Elisha ben Avuye, this had a devastating effect on his faith. It says he gave up his faith because of that. So it says in the Mishnah that the rabbis say that this commandment of shooing a mother bird away from the nest if you're going to get the eggs, if somebody tells you, look how fantastic God's mercy is, his quality of mercy that extends even to a bird, you silence such a person, because this law is called a hook. There's no rationale necessary. You do it because it's a commandment. It says to do it because it's an actual commandment, not because this was the ethical thing. Now, you might learn something like that from this, but the essence of the law is it's a commandment. So Elisha ben Avuya, he said, the boy did what the commandment was, and he died. So he was referred to as Acher from the other side, the other one. And he gave everything up. He gave everything up, fell to pieces. Now, how does that happen? There are rabbis that argue back and forth. He should have understood that the commandment, the mitzvah, meant it like this or like that. Context is so critical. How could an upstanding scholar that, together with Rabbi Akiva and other two sages, great men, studious men, the highest level, they go to the greatest heights of understanding the Torah. And obviously, there's other moments in his life, he sees something that could have other effects. So what's going on here? What do you think is going on here? Go back to the Holocaust, where it's life and death. And your faith is tested again and again and again. And some people gave up their faith over the slightest thing. Something seemingly not big, but they gave up their faith. So here's the point. We are surrounded by enemies today who want us dead. In Israel, synagogues have been attacked. by anti-Israel Arabs. Jews have been beaten in the streets, Jerusalem and other cities as well. Hamas thinks that they have a green light to fire on Israel anytime they want. Hezbollah from the other side, from Lebanon, they have thousands of missiles pointed at Israel. Iran supports Hamas and Hezbollah and supports setting up a base in Syria to encircle Israel and attack Israel, and they feel that they should be able to do it anytime they want, and the mantra is destroy Israel. And when you think about the numbers, that there's approximately 14 million Jews in the world, and there's over 1 billion Muslims in the world, and many of them support Hamas and Iran to destroy Israel. It's a serious challenge to being a Jew today. That you could look at something and say, I want to throw in the towel. I'm done. Don't do that. Don't give in to this fear. There is precedent. People have given into this fear. Don't do it. We're living in a different era today. We have Israel against all the odds. In 1948, who would have thought that Israel would come into existence, being attacked by huge Arab armies and an insurrection inside as well? And the Jewish people won. And in 1967, when they declared again their intention to destroy Israel and wipe Israel out, Israel won. And not only did Israel win, Israel reclaimed areas that they never dreamt they would go back to. They never dreamt that we'd be able to visit the Kotel again, the wall, and other holy sites in Israel and in Hebron. But that's the reality. We won. God is on our side. And we may not have all the answers, and we're never going to have all the answers. Why did this happen? Why did that happen? But this is what's happening today. We're living in the period of time of redemption, Jewish redemption. And the enemies, they're grasping at straws today. The venom is coming out because they know time is no longer on their side. Israel's prosperous, Israel's strong. And it's only getting stronger by the day and more prosperous by the day. The trade deals, the Abraham Accords, the direction Israel's headed in is a modern day miracle. That's why I'm proud to speak the truth for Israel. And I'm proud to make it my mission in life to defend Israel and defend the Jewish people. And that's what we're going to do. So we showed a brief clip earlier of training that's going on in Gaza. We have more videos to show about this, and there are actual charities here in Canada that are raising funds to rebuild Gaza. Here's the question. Where's the accountability? Will the tunnels be rebuilt? Oh, we have a call. 1 second. Can I help you?
Yeah, hi. This is Alan from New York.
How you doing, Alan?
And I was excellent, thank you.
Very good.
So I was going to just add to what Mayor was talking about being afraid and fighting back.
Go ahead.
I live in New York, as I just said.
Yes.
And in the last month, I've been to at least 3 or 4 rallies.
Mm-hmm.
Countless speakers, religious, political. And the one thing they all have in common, they're all afraid to call out the squad members by name.
Right.
These are people who engage in blood libeling of Israel, not just making comments that could be interpreted as not nice or offensive to Jews. And the problem is that the Jews are too afraid to fight back. They're all very brave at saying, we have to stop anti-Semitism. If the perpetrator is white, David Duke's misfortune is that he's not a black guy, because
Right.
if he would, he'd have gotten away with everything he's gotten away with. And now, if I'm sure you're seeing that you have blockades at different loading docks,
Mhm.
preventing ships from coming in. So there is a war. There is a war against us. Jews in New York City have gotten beat up,
Mhm.
and even the politicians are very timid in their response. There was a boy from the Five Towns who got beat up a few weeks ago. He never got a call from Chuck Schumer, from the mayor of New York, or the governor of New York.
Right. Wow. That's how
And I'm
pathetic it
giving you a
is.
mouthful. I know that.
No. I appreciate that. It's just this level of anti-Semitism. You know, at the same time, it could be God calling on the Jews. Let's just pack up, take our intelligence, take our wealth, take everything we have that's good, and bring it to Israel and make Israel even stronger and better and more prosperous. I mean, if this is what,
is that we're not.
Yes.
But we're not united as a Jewish people.
Mhm.
Do you know how many Jews are supporting the Democrats?
Go ahead.
Ilhan Omar compared the U.S. and Israel to Hamas and ISIS, and then after she was called out by a few Jewish Democrats, she clarified. You define clarify however you want. And Nancy Pelosi said, "Thank you for clarifying." And now let's move on to the next topic.
I saw that.
So
yes.
there is no moving on. The leadership here is you have Chuck Schumer, who boasts of being the most powerful elected Jewish Democrat in America, and he soils himself in the presence of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a 31-year-old former bartender. So This is what we're facing here in America.
Well, it's daunting. It's a major challenge. Jews are a lot weaker because of assimilation, and they just bend over backwards for this progressive nonsense that's going on right now. It's not progressive. It's anti-Semitic, period.
It's outright anti-Semitic, and the worst thing is that Democrats will not condemn their own unless they can find someone on the Republican side to make it bipartisan. And that's the asinine thing of it. Jonathan Tobin, a well-known columnist who I know you heard of, recently wrote a column. And he said that if Ilhan Omar was Marjorie Taylor Greene, Congress would have no problem trying to censure her. But because she's a Democrat, and now they're all adopting this, we're women of color.
Right.
Since when did having an olive or tan complexion make you a person of color? But this is what they're hiding. This is what they're hiding behind. And they're not ashamed of it. Jews lack the guts to fight the Arabs or the Islamists the way the Islamists are completely unafraid of attacking us. And I point this out. Their war against Israel it's an agenda to delegitimize the state of Israel and to destabilize the U.S.-Israel relationship. And in Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they see two people who are very weak morally, and this is their best chance, which is why they are so aggressive now in attacking Israel. And now with the new government there, we're hoping that they will, be stronger. But this is the war that we're facing here. When Hamas fired 4,000 rockets, nobody asked, what was their ultimate goal? Did Hamas think that they were going to get rid of Israel? It was done intentionally to provoke a response, which then could be turned into accusations of crimes against humanity. And you know what? I hate to say it, Mayor, but they're winning.
Well, they're certainly winning in diaspora. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure. There's no question about it. A lot of that also has to do with immigration. You know, we had Mayor Jolowitz on last week, and he read all kinds of stats that in these countries where they're coming from, the overwhelming majority of people in those countries believe in anti-Semitism. So if they're coming to the West from those countries, there's going to be more anti-Semitism coming. That's how they're raised.
You know, when Trump became president and started to crack down on immigration, do you know who was protesting at JFK? It was all these Jewish organizations, Jewish lawyers volunteering to freely represent them. So who's our worst enemy? And I say this half jokingly and half not jokingly. If Moses came back and ran as a Republican against Arafat as a Democrat, Arafat would get 50% of the Jewish vote.
Listen, you're right. You're right. I'm sure. Well, listen, when Moses was making his case in front of Pharaoh, he didn't have unanimous support from the Jewish people. They were ratting him out. it goes back.
Right. And so this is our great sin. There's right now a small caucus in Congress led by Congressman Waltz from Florida, him and 3 other Republican colleagues. None of them are Jewish, and they're all leading a bill to censure the Democrats. And I say this is our great sin.
Right.
All the Jews in America, we're leaving it to somebody else to protect us. And now you can understand a little bit what happened. You know, we all try to wrap our head around what happened in Germany in the 30s. We couldn't really understand it. Now we can understand. We are cowards. We don't defend ourselves, and then we cry when nobody else speaks up for us. And then it's contingent on who speaks up for us. You think that you have Christian Zionists who support Israel unconditionally because the Bible tells them to.
Yep.
And who attacks them? The Jewish left.
The Jewish left, 100%. I was just going to bring that up. Right. You're right. No question about it. And it's just it's an embarrassment what the left tries to say in the name of being Jewish.
Right. Listen, again, this is our sin, and may God forgive us. But in the meantime, we have people like you, your supporters, and other pro-Israel activists who are unafraid, unintimidated, can't be intimidated, and we just have to live to fight another day.
Absolutely.
With that said, Mayor, I wish you continued success in everything you're doing. Keep fighting the good fight for all of us, and we'll keep supporting you in your cause.
Alan, thank you very much for calling.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye. Nice to hear from Alan. Listen, there's no question about it. You know, one of the main BDS organizations here in Canada, and let me just say, whoever has a question or a comment, you can call the show. Numbers on the screen, 647-510-5535. There's an organization, they're actually in many countries, Samadon. The government of Israel listed them as a terrorist organization front for the PFLP, Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. They operate in Canada, they operate in the United States, operate in different places, but there's different countries, and they're very involved with the protests and the whole BDS movement. And they just put on their social media platforms a song. And I'm wondering if our doctor in the studio could show this, and I'll just read what they say about the song. Let me just find it. They're launching Suli, a new Palestinian song. This is on the website of Samadon. Samadon thanks this group of dedicated and revolutionary Palestinian artists in occupied Palestine and the diaspora who cooperated together to complete the song, Suli, Leaping Advance, which we dedicate in turn to the Palestinian people and their supporters everywhere, and to the Palestinian prisoners' liberation movement imprisoned in Zionist and imperialist jails. This song is part of the Palestinian heritage and reality of cultural struggle and resistance until liberation and return for all of Palestine from the river to the sea. Okay, so
Should I put up that song for you, Mayor?
If you could, yes.
Okay, I'm going to bring it right up.
قولي يا سمرة وجولي وشدي حيلي راجع أنا وياكي بكرة عالدار ما يحلالي غير صوتك يا أصيلي هاجم عالحيدر وناوي أكويهم نار قولي يا سمرة رجولي وشدي حيلي راجع أنا وياكي بكرة عالدار ما يحلالي غير صوتك يا قصيدي هاجم عالعدا وناوي أكويهم نار فدائي عالأرض المحتلة قلنا يا عالم الله 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 قالوا فارس مع سمرة أخذوا القرار صولي يا سمرة وجولي وشدي حيلي راجع أنا وياكي بكرة عالدار ما يحلالي غير صوتك هاجم عالعدا وناوي أكويهم نار ميلي عاقد في ميلي ليلي وضوي على الخليل وعجمال النار واكتبي مجد الشعب وعيدي وزيدي وانا من دمي بدي اكتب اشعار صولي يا سمرة وجولي وشدي حيلي راجع انا وياكي بكرة عالدار ما يحلالي غير صوتك يا قصيدي هاجم عالعدا وناوي أكويهم نار ليلي ليلي يا ويلي طول ليلي انتي وحدك دليلي عخط النار.
I think what's particularly amazing about these, they use as training films for the youth of the Palestinian areas of Gaza, of the West Bank, and it's being endorsed by American groups. That's bad enough. Canadian groups, bad enough. But there are Jewish groups who are endorsing this behavior. I mean, this is just Canada, with known supporters of terrorism. This is human concern. Now, this isn't human concern when they raise $16,500 for the people of Palestine and Gaza. Where do they think that money goes? It goes to the government. Who's the government? The government is Hamas. What does Hamas do with it? They don't build universities and concert halls. They build bombs and they build tunnels. We know this. The Gaza Emergency Appeal raised a lot of money with false marketing regarding, what the money is going to be used for. And then there are actually people who are rabbis who endorse this. This is a comment that the military wing of Hamas will begin their summer camp to register teenagers for basic military training. What do they think they're training teenagers in Hamas in Gaza to do? And then a rabbi, Goldstein, I've got to be honest with you. When I first read this, I honestly thought it was a joke, Mayor. I thought you sent me some sarcasm when a rabbi says that she wants to join the staff of this summer camp. She's signed up already, but she needs a few more people. And this is the marketing video that was shown on that commentary when they're talking about raising money for the poor Palestinian people.
إعلان مهم.
This is what the children see when they go away to summer camp.
تعلن كتائب الشهيد عز الدين القسام عن انطلاق التسجيل لمخيمات طلائع التحرير سيف القدس، وذلك ابتداء من يوم
I suspect they're not saying come and go canoeing and water skiing and let's learn to play baseball. That's probably not the common activities.
2021
القسام بيبني ضمير يصنع جيل الاستبصار جيل العودة والتحرير يوم الشدة يكونوا رجال.
الفئات المستهدفة: المرحلة الإعدادية، المرحلة الثانوية، المرحلة الجامعية، مرحلة الكبار. التسجيل يكون في أقرب مسجد وفي نقاط التسجيل المنتشرة في المفترقات العامة، ويبدأ من صلاة العصر إلى صلاة المغرب. ملاحظة: مخيم طلاب الثانوية العامة بعد انتهاء اختباراتهم. كتائب الشهيد عز الدين القسام.
Mayor, after that little video, I need a break, so back to you.
You know, we showed the video of Samadin, and it was gruesome and absolutely incitement. It shows what's going on, the guns being used to get the weapons being used against Israel. This is the BDS. That's what they're about. Now, the charitable organizations in Canada raising funds for Gaza, are they prepared to condemn that video put up by Samadin? Are they prepared to do that? Because the video is quite explicit. And this organization is embraced and very involved in all the BDS activities in Canada, throughout North America, in Europe. So will these charities condemn the video? Let's see, I just got a message. Okay. Now, again, the tunnel system in Gaza that was built, the sole purpose to attack Israel, are those funds going to be diverted in Gaza and used for that purpose? Are funds going to be diverted and used for weapons, for the indoctrination of these kids? There's already information coming out exposing UNRWA for teaching kids in the schools that they operate, anti-Semitism and to attack Israel. So where's the accountability? You want to help Arabs in Gaza? We're not against helping Arabs in Gaza or anywhere. Israel left Gaza and wants nothing to do with Gaza. But Hamas wants to attack Israel. Instead of making Gaza into a successful society, it's a society of incitement and hate and anti-Semitism. That's what's going on. Now, we have another video that our doctor in the studio, hang on 1 second, just got a message. Yeah, so we'd like to show this video. It's very important. It's about some of the nonsense going on with journalists blatantly lying to people. They have been injured by the IDF, by the Israeli army. They're incapacitated. There's a lot of nonsense going on right now. So here's a report that came out. Interesting video.
Okay, and right after the video, I'm going to make a quick comment on it. And
Okay.
so here's the video first.
One last thing. Al Jazeera is a Middle Eastern broadcaster that our own taxpayer-funded SBS uses broadcast some of its news shows. Unfortunately, I've got to say that Foxtel also has Al Jazeera, but I guess we're not taxpayer-funded. Still unhappy about that. Anyway, the ABC today reported that one of its poor journalists broke her hand when Israeli police arrested her. Those terrible Israelis. Here's Al Jazeera reporting this horrible news.
Israeli police have a history of using this kind of violence against journalists.
And it interviewed the reporter, the wounded reporter with the broken left arm.
How are you doing today?
I'm trying to be okay. They broke my hand. I spent all the night in the hospital. My back hurt me a lot. My leg, I can't walk very well.
Well, that's strange because her left hand, now in a cast, worked brilliantly just after the police freed her, having arrested her in a dispute about press credentials where she pushed first. As for her leg, that seemed to work perfectly fine as well when she left that police station and walked down the stairs. And her back, well, I must say, that seemed in better shape than my own when she picked up 2 children at once outside. I mean, do you feel, not for the first time, that the media coverage in Israel sometimes is a little bit untrustworthy, particularly from certain Middle Eastern sources like Al Jazeera? That's it from me.
Well, Mayor, first, before I comment on her broken hand, I know our audience isn't aware of this, but actually I do hand surgery. I don't know if you're aware of that, but this is me. I'm a plastic surgeon with specialty training in surgery of the hand. This isn't a marketing ploy. There's no number on there. Don't call me. But I thought you'd be interested to know my opinion, as perhaps we're kind of jumping to conclusions. So I'm going to show you a little video regarding other possibilities as to what actually happened with her hand. I mean, you know, we did jump to some conclusions on this one. So this is the amazing healing hand. Medicine or miracle? With our special guest, hand specialist, me. Okay, so moving right along, she hurts her hand, she breaks her hand. Next day, she's all better. Pretty amazing. By the way, again, just so you know, I'm credentialed because I'm a board certified surgeon with training in the hand. So I looked at the videos very carefully and I figured something out which was very difficult to tell. So here she is, and you could tell by people's expression before treatment, she's in pain. You could tell that she is in severe pain by her facial expression. You can't fake that. Just look at her eyes and her nose and her mouth and the poor thing. Owie, she's saying. So we know that she really must have had an injury. So how did it heal?
Broke my hand. I spent all the night in the hospital. I have a headache and my leg, I can't walk
Headache and a
very
leg
well.
ache. So she really, that all goes along with the hand problems. So her injuries included a broken hand, a headache, as well as an injured leg, which prevents her from walking very well. So how is the modern miracle of medicine where very soon thereafter she was able to use her hand? Well, there's a miracle cure, and we know all about it. We're very familiar with it, and we're falsely accusing her. Fresh medicinal Dead Sea salt. So if you take salt from the Dead Sea, as here, Morton's Dead Sea kosher salt, you put it on the hand like this. You simply massage your hands in the salt, and no wonder, watch how amazing she is. She can open or close her hand moments after her salt and mud bath from the Dead Sea. An amazing overnight recovery. And those are her children she's picking up. So immediately following the mud and salt treatments, she's able to use both her hands and her legs, and her headache is gone. So again, this is Israel, this is the Dead Sea. So why are we surprised at such miracles happening? She can grab her children. So once again, at the Dead Sea, you dip your hands in the salt, you put your face in the mud, and it's a miracle how young you could look so quickly. As evidence from other people who have gone to the Dead Sea and used the salts and the minerals available only in Israel, Dead Sea products. And this is what we call assault and a deadly weapon. You know, assault with a deadly weapon. Come on, you're a hard audience, but that's a joke. So to conclude our topic tonight, when you get a chance, go to Israel, go to the Dead Sea, as very important people have, like my daughter Hannah, floating in the Dead Sea, my daughters Sarah and Shana getting out of the Dead Sea, and my children enjoying the Dead Sea. Mayor, that's all I have for now. Back to you.
That's perfect. You know, on a previous show, we were highlighting at a lot of these vicious anti-Israel, anti-Semitic protests that are going on, calling for the destruction of Israel. They're also accusing Canada of being an illegal state, occupied territory, don't bring Canadian flags to the protest, don't recognize Canada. Well, we came across a letter. We just saw it on social media of some organization. They're called Fighting Hate in Canada. We don't know who they are. We're going to send them a message, find out who they are. But they sent a letter to the Law Society of Canada. And if our doctor in the studio could read this, because it was really caught my eye. It was
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
interesting.
I did look them up. They're an organization. They're a non-specific organization that fights hate on all fronts. They have a website. They have a Facebook page. And the person they're talking about, again, is somebody who we've seen. He's commented on many of our posts. And so they're making a letter about Stephen Ellis. And that's, very legitimate. He's a certified, trained, qualified attorney. And he's made comments, and again, I'm just quoting him directly, so nobody could question these quotes, which have been published, that Canadian Israeli flags represent apartheid and genocide. He also shared a post on Facebook, and we could all look this up. It's December 9th, 2014, that claimed Hamas does not use human shields. Now, he's saying this. He's a qualified attorney. He has ethics, so he must really believe that. So if he believes that, we can't argue his personal beliefs. He also shared a petition that supported Nadia Shofani, who claimed that the murder of a 4-year-old Israeli girl was a hero. That he shared on September 2nd, 2016. So the letter itself, though, is to the Law Society of Ontario, and it's written from this group of Fighting Hate in Canada. And I'll just read some high points of the letter because it's way too long to go into detail. But if you could see it on your screen, I've highlighted, it goes to the Ontario lawyer, Stephen Ellis, and this is verbatim from the letter. He's demonstrated words and actions that are in contradiction to his Hippocratic oath as a lawyer. They go on to say that he has participated in anti-Israel demonstrations, which is fine. We can demonstrate. We're allowed to do that. But these demonstrations called for the death of Israel. And there's a common chant that we will sacrifice our soul and blood for Palestine. Now, he may not have specifically said these things, but he attended these demonstrations and cheered along with the masses. In August of 2019, he suggested that picketing in front of the ambassador to Israel was fair game. I think that's not fair game. Now, we got to remember he's doing this on his own time. It's not government time. It's not his work time. So he's entitled, but yet we're supposed to, doctors and attorneys, we're supposed to live at a different level. We're held to a higher standard. And it's the opinion of this Fighting Hate Canada Association. Now, they're the ones who are accusing him of not being at this level. This isn't me saying this. They're saying that they're genuinely concerned that he's advocating for violence by participating in these rallies and these marches, and they're requesting that the Law Society of Ontario goes and investigates these issues. Again, he's commented many times on this show, over and over and over and over, the same comment: death to Israel, may the Jewish Defense League burn in hell. These are verbatim quotes we have screenshots of. So I don't want to get in any personal trouble. I'm just quoting things. I'm not giving a comment or editorializing. So on that comment, that's my last comment. Mayor, back to you in the studio.
He made a comment about flags.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I would say that his most flagrant comment was that he said that the Canadian and Israeli flags represent apartheid and genocide. If you see these symbols anywhere, the only moral thing to do is destroy them. So he's advocating for the destruction of flags. I honestly don't know the specifics regarding the laws in Canada, but in America, it's illegal to destroy an American flag. You can hold it up, you could protest, you could be opposed to it, but the burning or destruction of a flag in most countries is a felony. So I'm sure that it must not be the case in Canada, because an attorney who knows the law certainly wouldn't advocate a criminal offense by suggesting that these be destroyed.
Okay, and that's the letter from this organization to the Law Society of Canada, of Ontario, I believe. Yes, that's where it was. Okay, so anyone watching the show, if you want to call in, you got a comment or a question, the number to call is 647-510-5535. It's almost an hour already. We covered a lot today.
I might add
Also,
the comments while we have a couple of minutes from the University of Toronto has a Muslim society. And again, we're all in favor of school societies. However, it's getting a little out of hand. This is some commentary that the University of Toronto, they're saying that the University of Toronto is complicit in systemic changes, is overdue. And they listed their demands. These are demands made by a student association to the university. They're talking about the Palestinians that are murdered and killed by the Israelis. And they're suggesting that the program University of Toronto has, which goes to Israel, should just be stopped. They shouldn't allow that anymore because they don't feel that it's Israel. They feel that it's Palestinian territory. They furthermore, again, in their list of demands to university, they're condemning the ethnic cleansing carried out by Israel. Okay, this is being said by students to a university. They're claiming that Israel has broken 65 resolutions. We know in reality who breaks the resolutions, and that they're committing apartheid. We know that's not the case. And they're demanding action. I mean, they're demanding action from the university. Again, the fact that students can get away with such blasphemy and with such commentary, they're the ones who should be condemned, and there should be demands by the university that this organization be thrown out of the school.
And this is the Muslim Student Association, and their branch at University of Toronto. And they have branches on just about every campus. And Bernie Farber, the former CEO of the Canadian Jewish Congress, tells the community to work with Islamic organizations. Well, this is the main Muslim student organization. How could any Jewish student organization work with a group that accuses you of apartheid when it's completely false? Not only is it false, it's offensive. I remember when I appeared on a show, and Bernie Farber was on the same show by Al Jazeera quite a few years ago, and he took offense to the term apartheid. So when Bernie is telling our Jewish leaders and Jewish organizations to work with these Islamic Muslim organizations who accuse us of supporting apartheid, he's going back on something very fundamental. So we can't do that. We can't work with organizations that compare Israel to the Nazis. Not only that, but the IRA definition of anti-Semitism, it does say that when you use these comparisons, that's anti-Semitism. So therefore, you can't work with anti-Semites, period. You just can't. As a Jew, you just can't. We have to work with people who are on our side, who support Israel, whatever degree they support Israel. And for sure, evangelical Christians, they're great group to work with. As Alan, who phoned in earlier, stated clearly that Jews on the left, progressive left, they always condemn these Christian evangelical groups who support Israel. There's something really wrong with them. Maybe they hate religion, but I don't. I think it's a value, and it's not religion for me. This is what a Jew is supposed to do: keep the commandments, keep the Torah. It's part and parcel of being Jewish, and Israel is certainly a huge part of that as well. It all goes together. And when you deny it, you're not a good Jew, period. You're not doing what's right. And your understanding of what is ethical, not ethical. Nazis believed what they were doing in Nazi Germany was ethical. BDS groups believe what they're doing is a high value, ethical. They're anti-Semitism. It's anti-Semitism. It's not ethical. And but we have to rise up to the challenge and fight. There's no question about it. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're working with lawyers. We're working with other activists. We have a game plan we're going to be putting forward, a new direction, and I want people to get involved. So call us, send us emails. We'll get you involved. It's going to be very robust. believe we have something coming up. So, Doctor, have something to...
I'm checking. I thought I had a little video which discusses why Israel is not apartheid. I'm going to put this on. If it turns out to be the wrong video, then we'll just shut it off. But let me see if this is
Human
it.
Rights Watch Incorporated put vulnerable groups all over the world at risk by changing the definition of apartheid. You won't believe how they did it or why. This is a pretty big deal, yet the media almost entirely ignored it. So let's get into it. Most of the world thinks of apartheid as the system of institutionalized, legalized racism and segregation that used to characterize South Africa and that we still see in some places today. For example, China is holding 1 million Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps, or in Egypt and Algeria, where under the law, Christians don't have equal rights. Apartheid goes beyond racism. It is so severe that it has its own word. However, HRW Incorporated specifically said that is not the definition they are using. Instead, HRW wrote an entire 60,000-word paper just to accuse Israel of what they call the crime of apartheid. And the only way they could make that accusation was by creating this new definition, which they buried deep inside the document. Here's how they did it. HRW took selected text from a document called the International Convention on the Suppression and Punishment of the Crime of Apartheid. Written in the 1970s, only about half the countries in the world signed on to this document. Modern, Western, liberal democracies did not adopt it, including the United States, Canada, France, Israel, Italy, the Netherlands, the United Kingdom, New Zealand, Australia, and many more. Then, HRW took elements from another document called the Rome Statute, which was also adopted by about half the world but strongly opposed by many countries, including the US. Finally, Human Rights Watch Incorporated combined selected portions of these two documents into their own new definition of apartheid, which has not been adopted by any country at all. This new definition is used only by HRW itself, an undemocratic, unelected, huge nonprofit corporation in New York with an $85 million a year budget. This new definition is so broad that if you actually applied it fairly and rigorously, almost every country and person in the world would be guilty of it in one way or another. Our research team tried applying this definition to see who else is guilty of the crime of apartheid. The United States, the UK, Japan, every government in the Arab world, France, Finland, Starbucks, Disney World, my kindergarten teacher. To be clear, I'm not accusing these governments or companies or my kindergarten teacher, who, by the way, was an angel. I'm pointing out a problem with the definition, a problem that goes far beyond Jews and Israel. Jamie Miti, whose family personally suffered under apartheid in South Africa, explains.
The claim that is made by BDS that Israel is an apartheid state, I find it to be intellectually dishonest. And I find purveying that kind of intellectually dishonesty to a black audience to be insulting, because you are either trying to bastardize the history of apartheid to suit your political narrative, or you are deliberately misleading people.
But Human Rights Watch Incorporated didn't apply their new definition to the whole world. They applied it only to Jews living in Israel. Not all of Israel, just Jewish individuals for whom they recommend criminal prosecution for crimes against humanity. HRW's research triggered a chorus of objections, including from the Biden White House. Many critics noted that the facts were falsified, sources were openly biased, and that HRW itself has been politicized by private agendas for at least 20 years. Some critics noted statements by HRW's original founder, Robert Bernstein, who for years was saddened by his organization's downfall, saying it had lost critical perspective on a conflict in which Israel has been repeatedly attacked, and that it is issuing reports on the Israeli-Arab conflict that are helping those who wish to turn Israel into a pariah state. Unfortunately, most of this didn't make it into the mainstream media in the initial news cycle. Honest reporting has been at the forefront of holding journalists accountable ever since the report came out. If you'd like to see our take, you can find our article in the description, along with the original HRW paper. We link to all our sources, so you can check them out yourself. Now, Israel has plenty of shortcomings, and like every modern, diverse democracy, it faces challenges, ethnic tensions, and sometimes deserves criticism. But it also has a diverse population that includes Muslims, Druze, Bedouins, Christians, Baha'i, and many more. These minorities have equal rights, vote in elections, serve in parliament, and sit on the Supreme Court. They are actors and athletes, police officers and news anchors. As minorities in healthcare, they have served side by side with their Jewish colleagues on the front lines of the fight against COVID-19. And all Israelis, including minorities, were vaccinated at the fastest pace of any country in the world. When we accuse a country like that, but give a free pass to countries that have true legalized oppression and apartheid, this actually places the world's most vulnerable populations at risk. And when anyone makes up laws that apply only to Jews, well, we have to ask, who will they target next?
A lot could be said to make the case for Israel. Again and again and again, we have to make that case. Israel is always attacked, and more people in the media are in fact signing on to petitions calling on the Toronto Star and Global News and CBC to just start accusing Israel of apartheid, that it should have no right to exist. Therefore, we have to stand up to this. In Canada, there are some problems here that you hear about it a little bit in the media with the Aboriginals. And the Aboriginals are saying that in some of their communities, they have a problem with clean drinking water. So the BDS, they target these Aboriginal groups. And they say, your struggle is the same as our struggle against Israel. And they incite hatred. One of the targets for us going forward in campaigns, we have to reach out to Aboriginals in Canada and address that issue. And the way to address that issue is that Israel leads the world. They're on the cutting edge of water technology. The Aboriginal communities, they need Israel. They don't need that hate. The BDS only provides hate and blame for them. We have to reach out to the Aboriginals and show them the proof and the information from Israel about their water technology. Israel has been reaching out to many countries, Middle Eastern countries, African countries, offering this technology that they could bring water, create water out of thin air, literally. That's what they could do. So for those who are suffering in these Aboriginal communities from the problems of not clean drinking water, Israel is the solution and can fix your problem. We're going to reach out to you. We're going to provide this information, and we want to deliver a knockout blow to the BDS. We understand the numbers are not the same. The Jewish community is always a small minority up against a huge mass of haters, modern-day Nazis, anti-Semitism in all kinds of forms. But we're here, and we'll win. We'll win. We're never backing down. We'll stand up to the hate. And I want everyone who watches and participates and calls in, join us in the fight, take the high road. And let's deliver that knockout blow to the anti-Semites. I want to thank everyone for joining us. We do have a song that we're going to be putting on that our doctor in the studio has.
Well, actually, we have a couple of songs, and I'm always concerned about copyright. So I found some great songs between Israeli artists and various Arab artists, one in Morocco, one in United Arab Emirates. So I might just show bits and pieces of each of these three to avoid showing a whole one, which may be copyright. So if you see some abrupt cuts during this music, just enjoy the music, and afterwards I'll put you on for the last word. Okay?
Thank you. Sure. Stay tuned.
This is a winner of the Israel version of The Voice. Is the Israeli
يا
singer.
سلام يا بابا يا سلام يا ماما يا سلام يا سلام كل ولاد بالعالم
يا سلام يا أبا يا سلام يا إيمة يا سلام يا سلام كل يلدي أولاد. You hear me friend far away, far away. You hear my prayer.
I hear you pray far away, far away. I hear you pray. أهلا بك سلام ومرحبا
أهلا بك تודה ברוכבה. أهلا بك מתי כבר אתה בא.
أهلا وسهلا
أهلا وسهلا.
You're trying to reach is not available. Please call back.
بغيتي تمشي بسلامة سير وديرها من دابا يلي عذبتيني شوف فين وصلتينا واش هادي علامة ولا غير ليزة سحابة قلبك اللي هديتيني غيتوب ويرجع لينا.
جوني ماريا جوني مار אל תגידי שנגמר בלילות נהיה לי קר. דמעות על הכרית מה ללב שלי עשית את יודעת שטעית.
يا الحبيب جوني مار يا جوني مار يا جوني مار يا الحبيب جوني مار يا جوني مار يا جوني مار.
אני חיל לנפשי אני רוצה להיות חופשי רוצה להיות חופשי. לחבב ג'וני מר יא ג'וני מר יא ג'וני אל תתחילי דרמה ותבכי למאמה כל השנים איתך עליות וירידות מה יהיה איתנו החיים שלנו לא ממי אל תבכי לי זה קשה לי עם פרדות.
جوني مار يا جوني مار حبيتك واحنا صغار وانت اللي ضيعتينا. جوني مار يا جوني مار شعلتي في قلبي نار شعلتي في قلبي نار. يا الحبيب جوني مار يا جوني مار يا جوني مار يا الحبيب جوني مار يا جوني مار يا جوني مار.
אני חיל לנפשי אני רוצה להיות חופשי רוצה להיות חופשי.
يا الحبيب جوني مار يا جوني مار يا جوني مار.
ג'וני מר יא ג'וני מר אל תגידי שנגמר בלילות נהיה לי קר.
جوني مار يا جوني مار شعلتي في قلبي نار شعلتي في قلبي نار. يا الحبيب جوني مار يا جوني مار يا جوني مار يا الحبيب جوني مار يا جوني مار يا جوني مار.
אני חיל לנפשי אני רוצה להיות חופשי רוצה להיות חופשי. לחבב ג'וני מר יא ג'וני מר יא ג'וני
Very nice.
And last of all, this is called Peace Among Neighbors.
Yeah.
That was it. Okay, back to Mayor.
That was from Ramadan. Yeah. Yeah, of course. Well, listen, we can't ignore the problem. We can't live in la la land at all. There are serious problems. Our community is under attack, and we can't cower. Never, never again. That's the slogan. And it's not just a slogan, it's a way of life. Never again. That's it. So I gave the analogy, I spoke about in the Parsha explanation that you had rabbis back then that with what was going on and the brutality of the Romans against the Jews and the duress the community was under, it's easy for some people, even the best of the best learned, to throw it away, to become very confused and not know what to do. Don't become confused. Keep your eye on the ball. This is the same enemy. And we have to be ready to stand up to this anti-Semitic foe. That's what it is. It's anti-Semitism. Oh, there's a call. 1 second. Can I help you? You're on. Last minute.
Okay, it's Sam Fishman from Calgary.
How you doing, Sam?
Good. I just want to ask,
Yes.
is there any
Yes.
is there any connection with B'nai B'rith and the other Jewish organizations?
What do you mean, any connection? Sam, I heard your question.
Yeah.
But what do you mean connection?
Just where you're working together and putting some resources that things can be put to the media that contradicts all the garbage that's going on.
Okay, listen, Sam, thanks for your call, but let me be very clear. I'm not a career politician. I don't BS anyone in my community, and I'm not saying that B'nai B'rith, CEJA, the Wiesenthal Center, these groups are just BSers or anything like that. But this is volunteer. And we don't need the approval of these organizations. I work with experts. I'm an expert on anti-Semitism. I have a long history of fighting anti-Semitism. If they want to work with us, they could work with us. We're not working with, listen, thank you for wondering what's going on, but if I want to understand what it means to be Jewish, I'll talk to my rabbi about it. I don't need to talk to these organizations. What are they going to tell us? We read the letter from this organization, whatever their name is, Canadians Against Hate or something like that, where they sent a letter to the Law Society of Ontario. And I looked at their social media platform that they use, and apparently they've sent recently a lot of letters. And I'm not even sure who's behind that particular organization, but it could be people who are working on a very small budget. But I'm not aware of the same kind of letters coming from B'nai B'rith, CEJA, the Wiesenthal Center, although they have large budgets. We want action, and we want the BDS to be confronted. And my statement last week regarding the JDL, that's true, the statement I made, 100%. But that never, that has nothing to do with my resolve to make sure that anti-Semitism is not going to be stronger in Canada or anywhere. Anti-Semitism has to be confronted. And we recruit the grassroots community and other allies that we have in other communities, and we're taking the high road. And that's what we're doing. So this is not like the buddy system, call the B'nai B'rith or Sija, and, you know, I'll pat your back, you pat my back. We're not into that. We're not into titles or awards. But thanks for calling. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Please get involved. We need you. We'll put you to work. We'll give you tasks to do in every city across Canada and in the United States as well. We have a lot of work to do. Lots of work to do. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Please, same time next week. Let's do it. We have a lot to talk about. So much we covered tonight and every week. There's so much. I can't believe it that I think the podcast is, I don't know, what is it, 6 months already? We've done it every single week.
And it's been great. I did find the video I meant to show earlier. So I'm going to show it whenever you say we're over and out. This is going to be the over and out video.
Let's see it.
Okay. Till next week, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
نحتاج دعم واهتمام لإنجاز مشروع السلام نحتاج دعم واهتمام لإنجاز مشروع السلام كفانا فرقة وانقسام يكفينا حق وانتقام كفانا فرقة وانقسام يكفينا حد وانتقام
نادوا رفيعي المقام وذوي الروى والاهتمام نادوا رفيعي المقام وذوي الروى والاهتمام لنمضي معا نحو السلام لنمضي معا نحو السلام لنمضي معا نحو السلام فلا خيار فلا خيار فلا خيار سوى السلام سوى السلام سوى السلام سوى السلام خير الشعوب الالتئام والعيش في حب ووئام خير الشعوب الالتئام والعيش في حب ووئام والدعوة تشمل الأنام لنمضي معا في الالتحام هيا بنا نحو السلام
هيا بنا نحو السلام
نحو السلام
نحو السلام نحو السلام
Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Israel